what I'm doing here is I'm trying to, give a sketch of the elements of newness in this environment and how it affects us in education. And what I'd like to go on to discuss now is what I think the importance of education is in this moment. And I've mentioned just 2 or 3 points here. One is the anxieties of parents. I mean, it's becoming harder and harder to succeed in the world. It's a highly unequal world. It's a highly competitive world. Parents are very, very anxious that their children, end up with jobs which reward well, which are in reality relatively scarce. Most jobs are still changing beds in hotels and being cleaners, and the reality is there aren't the number of well-paying professional jobs in the world is relatively small, and parents seem to be going out of their way more than ever to focus on the outcomes, the educational outcomes of their children, be that homeschooling because we can't trust the school system to do it. We're going to do it ourselves and be very, very thoroughly focused on that. Be that the parents who drive their kids around to music and to sport and to extra tutoring, and these things have become bigger industries, and they express the anxieties of parents for their children, which is, to get ahead, to get that extra good job, you can't just rely on the school to do it. You've got to be ahead of the other kids to be competitive. And so there's a kind of a zeitgeist in parenting at the moment, a whole, sort of feeling that education is very important, and this extra focus and effort that's going into that. So that's one kind of indicator of what the social importance that's now ascribed to education. Another indicator is a set of phrases which describe the kind of economy we're in at the moment. People use, and the kind of society. And a couple of expressions are knowledge society, new economy, knowledge economy. And the kind of idea behind these is the look in not so long ago, most people were going to industrial work. There was a very fine division of labour. You were put on the production line. You screwed this particular bolt onto the machine as it came past you down the production line. And in a sense, what it was a system of de-skilling workers. But in a knowledge society, in every job, you've got to have more technical knowledge, more ability to use computers, more ability to interact with each other in teams. Even in service jobs, you've got to have ways of interacting with customers. So there's a kind of an aura to this idea of a knowledge society, a new economy, a knowledge economy. There are more jobs in these sectors, in computing, in the service sector of the economy, as opposed to agriculture or industry. So there's a set of profound cultural shifts going on, well, structural economic shifts, not just cultural, where the outcomes of education become very important for society. So education is more important in that sense. We're in a different kind of economy now. But what follows from that also is an interesting discourse of politicians. Politicians are all the time saying how important education is. We're going to be, the education president, the education prime minister, or, there's a kind of a rhetoric which keys into the anxieties of parents, which keys into this discourse of economic the economic structure of our society. And by the way, it's the economic structure of our society in competition with other societies. So, we've offshored all the manufacturing in first world countries to developing economies. So we have to be competitive by really monopolising services and culture and knowledge and science and all these kind of knowledge economy enterprises. So the discourse of politicians is around this national competition stuff, accusing the anxieties of parents. A lot of promises are made about education. But despite all the promises, we're also in a time of terrible resource austerity. Now, if you look at long-term trends around government and social financial support for different sectors of the economy, over the last half century, the percentage of gross domestic product, that's both government expenditure but also private expenditure on health, has just about doubled. It's something like 10% of GDP is spent on health. Health's become more sophisticated, we're living longer, but it's become much, much more expensive. But in the same time, public and private, the amount of investment as a society that we're doing in education is actually going down. So, and that's as a percentage of GDP. And that's not just saying public sector and private sector. It's the total spending we do as a society on education is going down. So here's no irony. We think this thing is so darned important. In fact, we know it is, particularly in this moment. We talk about it all the time as being important. But as a society, we're not committing to that. We're committing to pay more money for health, but we're not committing to pay more money as a percentage of the total gross domestic product on education. So the result is us, we who work in education, we feel the squeeze all the time. It's constantly being squeezed, and we're constantly being told it's costing too much money. However, the job of education, the job of being a teacher, to train to be a teacher, it's a lot of years. It's not, it's as it is to become a doctor and a lawyer, but doctors and lawyers are paid a whole pile of money and teachers aren't paid much at all. So in a way, this also reflects a social devaluation of teaching as a profession, which is tragic. These are a set of really serious problems which we as educators have to recognise, we have to address, we have to deal with them, and we have to become very powerful advocates for our profession in this context in which it's being devalued.